The script: The Fall of Rome, 5 reasons an empire collapsed. For over 1,000 years, Rome stood as the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Its legions were unstoppable, its culture unmatched, its power absolute. But by 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire had crumbled into dust. How does the most powerful civilization in history simply disappear? Today, we're uncovering the 5 real reasons Rome fell, and some of them might surprise you. Welcome to Chronicles of Time, where we explore history's greatest stories. At its height, the Roman Empire controlled over 5 million square kilometers, stretching from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria. Over 60 million people lived under Roman rule. But empires don't collapse overnight. Rome's fall wasn't caused by a single event. It was death by 1,000 cuts, accumulated over centuries. Historians have debated this for generations, but 5 key factors stand out as the primary causes of Rome's downfall. Let's dive into what really happened. Reason number 1: the economy crumbled. Rome's economy was built on conquest. New territories meant new resources, slaves, and wealth flowing into the empire. But by the 3rd century AD, Rome had stopped expanding. No new conquests meant no new wealth. The government faced a massive problem. How do you fund a giant empire without new income? Their solution? Debase the currency. They reduced the silver content in coins, creating more money but making each coin worth less. Sound familiar? This triggered devastating inflation. Prices skyrocketed. A Roman soldier's salary, which could once feed a family for a year, couldn't buy food for a month. Trade networks collapsed. Farmers abandoned their fields because they couldn't make a profit. Cities that once thrived became ghost towns. To make matters worse, Rome was hemorrhaging gold to the east. Romans loved luxury goods from China and India: silk, spices, perfumes, but they had little to trade in return, so gold constantly flowed out of the empire. The economic foundation of Rome was rotting from within. Reason number 2: the mighty legions weakened. For centuries, Roman legions were the most feared fighting force on earth. Disciplined, well-trained, and loyal to Rome above all else. But that changed. First, recruitment became a crisis. Roman citizens no longer wanted to serve in the military. Why risk your life when the economy was collapsing and military pay was worthless? Rome turned to foederati, foreign mercenaries and barbarian tribes who fought for Rome in exchange for land and payment. By the 5th century, the Roman army was barely Roman at all. These mercenaries had no loyalty to Rome. They fought for whoever paid them. Some even turned on Rome itself. Military discipline crumbled, training standards dropped. The legendary tactics that once conquered the known world were forgotten. Meanwhile, Rome's enemies were getting stronger. Germanic tribes, Huns, Persians. They learned Roman military tactics and developed their own sophisticated armies. The shield that had protected Rome for 1,000 years was now full of holes. Reason number 3: political chaos. Between 235 and 285 AD, just 50 years, Rome had over 50 different emperors. Most were assassinated or killed in civil wars. This period, called the Crisis of the 3rd century, shattered any pretense of stable government. Emperors were made and unmade by the army. Generals fought each other for the throne while barbarians invaded the borders. The Senate became powerless. Civil wars drained resources that should have defended the empire. Roman legions that should have been guarding frontiers were instead killing each other. Corruption was rampant. Officials cared more about personal wealth than the empire's survival. Tax collectors became extortionists. Justice became a commodity only the rich could afford. The empire split. In 285 AD, Emperor Diocletian divided Rome into eastern and western halves, hoping smaller regions would be easier to govern. It didn't work. The Western Empire grew weaker, while the Eastern Empire, which would become Byzantium, survived for another 1,000 years. Without strong, stable leadership, Rome couldn't coordinate a defense against the mounting threats. Reason number 4, the barbarians at the gates. The term barbarian simply meant anyone who wasn't Roman. But these weren't primitive savages. They were sophisticated warrior cultures with their own motivations. The pressure began with the Huns. Around 370 AD, these fearsome horsemen from Central Asia began pushing westward, displacing Germanic tribes who had lived along Rome's borders. These displaced tribes, the Visigoths, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and others, had nowhere to go except into Roman territory. In 378 AD, at the Battle of Adrianople, Visigoth cavalry annihilated a Roman army and killed Emperor Valens. It was a shock Rome never fully recovered from. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Visigoth King Alaric sacked Rome itself. The city hadn't fallen to a foreign enemy in 800 years. Then came the Vandals, who conquered North Africa, Rome's breadbasket. Without African grain, Rome starved. Wave after wave of invasions overwhelmed the weakened Western Empire. By the mid-5th century, Roman territory was just Italy and a few surrounding regions. The empire couldn't defend itself anymore. The wolves had finally breached the gates. Reason number 5, Rome lost its soul. This might be the most controversial reason, but many historians argue it's the most important. Early Rome was built on virtues: duty, discipline, sacrifice for the common good. Roman citizens were proud to serve the state, but centuries of wealth and power corrupted these ideals. The elite became decadent, obsessed with luxury and entertainment while the empire burned. Bread and circuses, free food and gladiator games kept the masses distracted from real problems. Christianity's rise also transformed Roman society. As Christianity spread, many Romans questioned whether fighting for an earthly empire mattered when eternal salvation was what truly counted. Military service declined as people turned to monasteries instead of legions. Traditional Roman values, the very foundation of their success, eroded. Without a shared sense of purpose and identity, what was there left to fight for? When the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed in 476 AD, it barely made a ripple. The empire had already died in spirit long before it died in fact. So what really caused the fall of Rome? Economic collapse made the empire unsustainable. Military decline left it defenseless. Political chaos prevented any coordinated response. Barbarian invasions delivered the death blows, and the loss of civic virtue meant no one was willing to save it. Each factor fed into the others, creating a downward spiral Rome couldn't escape. But here's the fascinating part. The Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, survived for another 1,000 years, until 1453. They faced many of the same challenges, but managed to adapt and endure. The fall of Rome wasn't inevitable. It was the result of choices, failures, and circumstances that compounded over centuries. History's greatest empire didn't fall in a day. It fell one mistake at a time. What do you think? Could Rome have been saved? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, subscribe to Chronicles of Time for more fascinating stories from the past. Next time, we'll be exploring Cleopatra's death and the end of ancient Egypt. Hit that like button, and we'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep exploring the Chronicles of Time. End screen with subscribe button and suggested video.